Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to our Fix Your Gut, Transform Your Life event this evening. Tonight, you are going to get to learn from Jamie Kuenzie, who is an occupational therapist, precision nutrition certified coach, and wellness educator dedicated to helping people take a proactive, sustainable approach to their health. Jamie is a wife and a mom of three teenagers who understands firsthand the realities of balancing family, career, and personal wellness in today's fast-paced world. Through her work as an occupational therapist, she helps individuals understand how daily habits, environment, and lifestyle choices influence long-term function, resilience, and overall quality of life. For more than 2 decades, Jamie has been deeply involved in the wellness space, focusing on nutrition, prevention, and simplifying health in a world filled with overwhelming and often conflicting information. She partners with the Juice Plus company, where she educates and supports individuals and families in building practical, nutrition first strategies that align with real life. Jamie is known for her ability to take complex science and translate it into relatable, actionable insights that empowers people to work with their biology rather than against it. So we are so excited for you to join us this evening. My name is Brandy Foss. I am a dear friend with Jamie, and please join me in welcoming Jamie as she presents Fix Your Gut, Transform Your Life.
Aw, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you all and give me a thumbs up, Brandy, if that looks good on your end. Perfect. Well, thank you guys for taking your Tuesday night to be with us. And like Brandy mentioned before we opened up the call, I know many people on this call are getting ready to head off on a trip this week. So thank you for, again, taking your time. And likely, if you guys are on here, I just want to say, if you are interested in the topic of fix your gut, transform your life, it's likely because you are walking through something challenging, you have walked through something challenging, or you have a loved one, or maybe a dear person that you've invited to be on this, or you're sending this recording to. So just thank you for caring about your health and maybe looking for other root causes of maybe what's going on and being open to other options of hope for healing, because that really is what we're here to do with you guys tonight. This is my family. They are my why. They're the reason I do what I do. And it's because I started out in a pretty rough spot that I didn't want my kids to have to walk through the kind of illnesses I walked through as a infant. And I honestly want to kind of break that legacy so that my children's future children don't have to walk through that, or at least we're empowered with tools that unfortunately my mom just did not have. So this is a picture of me when I was 11 months old. And if you look up in that upper left-hand corner of sitting in the sink getting a bath, you can see medications, and those were mine. Because what had happened was on that right side is I had had pneumonia so bad that they told my mom that if what they were doing wasn't helping and if it didn't change, that they were going to end up giving me a trach. Thankfully, I never ended up needing a trach, but what ended up opening up my airway and allowing me to breathe was high doses of steroids and antibiotics. So back in the 1970s, I was a late 70s baby. You definitely didn't hear the topic of gut microbiome like you guys are going to hear tonight. And honestly, what happened is when I got pumped full of all those steroids and antibiotics, we are not born with a microbiome. We actually start developing it. And what I had already developed by 11 months old essentially got completely wiped out with those medications. And science shows that when kids are really little, if they get bombarded with those kind of medications, that stunting of the microbiome leads to a lot of other illnesses down the line. So for me, when I could start to eat, I had an allergy to eggs. Then, as I ate more solid foods and my mom would feed me chicken, I had an allergic reaction to poultry. And we kind of joked that if it was ever living, I was allergic to it, which meant our pet dogs, I was highly allergic to trees, grasses, pretty much every spring and fall, especially the first 4 years of my life. My mom has it documented in my baby book. I was either in the ER or hospitalized with pneumonia or croup. So by 25 years old, I got put on I was on 8 prescription medications. And I really think I've become the person that the younger version of myself wished I would have had. I ended up going down the medical route. I became an occupational therapist, as Brandy mentioned, but I didn't stop there because I really, if function is not being on those medications, if when it comes to nutrition, if function looks a certain way, I wanted to know what that was for myself. And then I wanted to help other people to do the same thing. Because if I could help moms avoid the kind of pain and stress my mom had, she was the mom of 5 kids, I was the middle. And I took a lot of her energy. I want to prevent that for mamas so that they're just have less stress and are less tired. But also, me as a little one, just that inability to not be able to breathe can be pretty scary. But I will say, I think a bright thing came out of my being sick quite often, and that is just I am resilient. Like I just always encountered having obstacles, and that was just a part of my life and who I was. And I think that has been a great value to who I am today. And it's difficult to sometimes teach that to my kids who we're trying to help not have as many obstacles. But I'm grateful you're here, and I'm going to hopefully give you guys hope for avoiding kind of what I walked through. And really, there's a connection. And so tonight, I want you guys to see the connection, and it kind of starts right here. These are the statistics in our country. So, chronic disease and inflammation. 3 out of 5 Americans are going to die from chronic inflammatory diseases such as heart disease, cancer, stroke, or diabetes, right? Those are the big ones. And likely, if I asked all of you to raise your hands, if you knew somebody who had those, all hands would be raised. Chronic inflammation is linked to more than 130 health conditions. I mean, that is a lot, and a lot of common ones. Around 60% of Americans live with at least one chronic disease. Approximately 10% of Americans have autoimmune disease, and about 1 in 3 Americans have allergic conditions. What I get frustrated by sharing this with you is that probably none of this is a shock to you. And unfortunately, it should be. Like if my grandma would have heard these kind of statistics when she was young, it would have been alarming. There would have been like a national approach to we got to do something about it. But unfortunately, we've been desensitized to accepting that disease and medicine is our norm. And it gets me more frustrated when you see some of these statistics. So metabolic health is not just about weight loss or weight gain. Metabolism is about how we use energy and how we use it and how we store it. So between 88 to 93% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy. Things like diabetes, obesity do fall into this category. Roughly 75% of adults are overweight or obese. This is why probably the most popular I would say prescribed medication right now is a GLP-1. And I'm not against those. Please hear me. I'm not. I think there's an appropriate place for them. But sometimes people throw the GLP-1 at a lifestyle that is not going to be able to maintain it, right? So it's going to be really important when people are doing those kind of things that they're doing the lifestyle things along with it. And I'm going to touch on some of those here in a little bit. Metabolic dysfunction is strongly associated with systemic inflammation. And this is what really gets me, right? Nearly half of US children have a chronic health condition. Children have a chronic health condition. That is that is unacceptable. Childhood obesity has reached record levels. And this is the first generation of kids not expected to outlive their parents. So what if the problem isn't that we have so many different health issues, but we keep missing the one system they all share? And you heard in those health statistics, all of those disease processes were linked to inflammation. So I'm going to introduce you guys to the microbiome, and likely you've heard that term before, and you rightfully so probably pretty much think of the gut microbiome. And we are going to really lean into that tonight. But what I want you to understand is the microbiome touches any surface that has a relationship with the outside world. So our nasal passages are, we have an oral microbiome, which is why it's actually not good to do things like mouthwashes because it kills the good bacteria. So keep brushing your teeth, keep flossing, but I'm going to encourage you guys not to mouthwash. You need those good bacteria. Um, your, our urinary tract still touches the outside world, and of course, our reproductive organs have, um, and our digestive system has touch with the outside world. So all of those linings, like everything is still outside, even though like when we eat, we chew up food and it goes down our digestive system. That actually is technically still outside until it crosses into the bloodstream. And that is why the microbiome houses the majority of the microbiome. That's why our gut, sorry, houses the majority of our microbiome. And we're going to touch on a little bit more why that is. So, what is the gut microbiome? It's the largest ecosystem of these microscopic organisms that live predominantly in the colon. It's mostly made up of beneficial bacteria, along with viruses, fungi, and other microorganisms that work together to regulate digestion, immunity, metabolism, and inflammation. Um, there are actually more bacteria than there are human cells. So this isn't, I think old medicine used to think that we needed to kill these things off. They didn't understand them. And the goal actually is the opposite. We don't want to destroy them. We want to learn to live with them because we actually are their hosts and they want us to thrive and to stay alive because we're their home. So Dr. Will Bolshewitz, you can look him up on social media as the Gut Health MD, specifically on Instagram, but he is really great at taking this information and breaking it down. He wrote a book at the beginning of the year and it's called Plant Powered Plus. I highly encourage you guys to get that book. He reads the audio if you're more of a listener, but even being in the medical profession, I really only thought of our defense system as our immune system. And when I heard Dr. Will on a podcast he was doing in launching his book, he said, actually, the immune system is the third step in the process. He said the first line of defense are the microbes. And I've already kind of told you guys what those are, but the reason that the majority of them live in our gut is because this is where the food crosses into the bloodstream. And the second layer of defense is the actual cell wall. So we need a strong cell wall with tight junctions that keeps those cells together. But what happens is that first and foremost, our lifestyle like weakens these microbes or wipes them out completely, like mine did as a baby. And then things that aren't supposed to cross this wall now are able to start to penetrate. And now our immune system has to act. The challenge is that this part of our immune system, you have your adaptive immune system and your innate immune system. Your innate immune system is you get a cut, it turns red, it swells, right? Your body sends like blood cells to help heal that up. Like that's normal. We want that to happen. But our adaptive immune system, we do not want it to be on at all times. But when things start to cross this barrier, our adaptive immune system is having to stay on alert. And so we stay in what's called a low grade inflammation. And this is what causes problems because our gut is connected to pretty much every organ system. And I put this here to show you. So dysbiosis of gut microbiota, sorry, just means imbalance of gut bacteria, right? And so when your gut bacteria gets imbalanced, these are the different organ systems that it typically shows up in, and then you have problems. And this is where your genetics come into play. So for me, my lungs were compromised, right? I always had a gut lung connection. For my son, his gut, I mean, he gets like gut brain things quite often, but you're going to hear his story in just a little bit. But think through these things. So if low-grade inflammation stays ongoing for too long, how might this be showing up in you or in somebody you love, right? Parkinson's is brain inflammation. What if we help to take some of that inflammatory load and the demand off of our gut, right? Or our immune system? How might that show up cognitively for people? So just some things to kind of think through. Here are some common signs of an unhealthy gut. I'm not going to read this whole list to you guys. Feel free to take a screenshot. But what I see right now is a lot of my peers are getting sick. And honestly, the ones that, like, I have a friend, it's like he's on week 3 and he's been on antibiotics for different things. But he's walking through quite a bit of stress. And then another person that I know recently, like, came down with something last week, is also under an excessive amount of stress. So stress actually weakens those bacteria that are lining that gut, and it weakens them and it helps to like kill them off. So stress is like one of the top things I think is underrated, and it's really important for us to take care of ourselves. But some other things that might pop up on here that might be a surprise for you guys is maybe fertility and pregnancy challenges. Did you realize those were tied to an unhealthy gut? And the number one, fatigue. Like, just if you're getting tired more often, this is like the number one way our body is telling us that our gut is out of balance. And it's like, hey, you have an opportunity right now to take care of it so some of these other major things don't start happening. And why are these things happening? The perfect storm for gut imbalance. Honestly, it is not specifically on this list, but right now, if you guys, actually, I would say environmental chemical exposures. If you go onto Netflix, there is a documentary right now. Dr. Shayna Swan wrote this documentary, and it's called The Plastic Detox. And it's all about, unfortunately, like the predominance of microplastics in our culture and how we have such a heavy amount of microplastics going on inside of our bloodstream. So that is a major effect for us. Plus, people are eating way more processed foods. They're eating way more sugar. They're not eating a variety of plants. They're not prioritizing fiber. They are taking antibiotics. They're taking ibuprofen and Tylenol. All of those things help to weaken those microbes and completely wipe them out. Again, here's our chronic stress. If you're not a good sleeper, that is affecting your gut. We're not outside as much as we once were as civilization. So hopefully you guys, especially as the weather is starting to get better in a lot of areas, you start taking advantage of being outside more. So you can see it's not just one thing, it's like a lot. And I hope it's not overwhelming to you guys, but I'm going to encourage us to take small, simple changes. Now, this is another way that your body is speaking to you. And I know people don't like to talk about it. My younger 2 kids, I showed them the scale and they were like, ew, mom. But I think it's important, especially that our kids know what the scale is. This is the Bristol stool scale. This is what gastroenterologists use and doctors use to tell their patients what is healthy and what is not. You want to really aim for type 3 and type 4. If you're type 1, type 2, you could be dehydrated. You could have some, like, your nervous system could be out of balance, and dehydration is probably a huge factor there. And then you get to types 5, 6, and 7. That could be a low plant diversity. You're not getting enough fiber. Also, stress and your nervous system could be playing a role for types 5, 6, and 7. So you really want to be at type 3 or 4. If you find yourself getting on those other ends of the spectrum, what we're going to share with you tonight are going to be really great, simple places for you to go to try to get it back on track. I think it's also important to know what season of life you're in, because like I mentioned, when I was a baby, I wasn't born with a microbiome. When we passed through mom's birth canal, if you did, unfortunately, I ended up with 2 C-sections. But when you pass through mom's birth canal, you get exposed to mom's bacteria, which are good. They're really healthy for the baby to get exposed to that. And when when baby latches and starts breastfeeding, baby starts getting really healthy nutrients that help to feed those bacteria. So Mother Nature has perfectly designed the system to start developing at birth. But I remember because since I've had kids, I've been a pretty like health conscious mom. And I remember doing all the healthy things and my baby still getting runny noses and getting fevers when they were quite little. And I'd be like, I do such healthy things with them. Well, here's a huge reason why. This is why babies and elderly are some of our most vulnerable populations, is because they do not have the diversity of bacteria in their guts like we do as full-sized adults. Now, we can be intentional about this, and we can definitely help babe and help elderly to increase that population. So now that we know, now we can be empowered. So I've mentioned a couple things to you guys tonight about what we can do about it. We really are going to go lean into nutrition because I feel like that's the biggest lever that we have. But I am going to touch on just a few other things here that you guys can do to help calm your nervous system or to help help your gut health. Let's talk nervous system though, because I think about when we eat our meals, it is such a perfect time. If we want to help our system to digest, it's a really easy hack just to stop and take 4 slow, deep breaths before you begin putting food in your mouth, chewing and swallowing. Because when we stop to take 4 slow, deep breaths, it lets our body know that it's safe, that it doesn't have to be. I mean, there is a certain level of sympathetic system that you're going to have to chew and break down that food, but you're going to be better able to break it down and then to absorb it when you start with just starting to calm that system. Another one is sunlight. When you can get sunlight on your eyes first thing in the morning, it wakes up all of the bacteria. Light exposure through your eyes. So, like, take the sunglasses off. I honestly rarely wear sunglasses anymore. I might wear a hat, but it's so important for communication with our body to allow that light to pass through our eyes. Movement, even if it's just a walk. Honestly, for digestion, if you could take deep breaths before your meal, and if you could go for a 5-minute walk after each meal, there's actually a trend on social media, and people document themselves going on fart walks. Because truly, when you go for walks after meals, it helps to lower that glycemic load, the sugar spike doesn't can come down. You can lower that sugar spike and have more of a balanced blood sugar. And it helps start to break down some of the postbiotics are created when you go for a walk that are going to help digestion and help the whole gut to heal. So gas is good. So burps and farts while you're walking, honestly, are a good thing. So maybe make sure the person, if you go for it with somebody, that you guys are both pretty comfortable with one another. Okay, so let's dive into the nutrition piece. There are 4 workhorse nutrients, and it doesn't matter what your eating lifestyle is. Honestly, there is not a one size fits all for longevity and health span and lifespan. But what the literature and the science shows are there are eating lifestyles that show that it improves those metrics. So pescatarian, vegetarian, vegan, paleo, oh my gosh, I'm missing another. Mediterranean, that's a really big one. So all of those have shown to help move the health needle forward. There's not one better than another. But the interesting things is all of these ones that have the studies behind them also show they eat these 4 categories. And so if I can help you just get real narrow with what categories to focus on tonight, then I feel like I've done my job. And so we're going to start with fiber. This one, honestly, we just did a fiber challenge maybe a month ago. And this was such a beautiful thing. So if you're a female, you want to aim for 25 grams or more daily. Men want to aim for 38 grams minimum or more. Children, take whatever their age is and add 4 grams. Fiber comes in things like beans and lentils, oat and quinoa, chia and flaxseed, your fruits and your veggies, right? Your berries. And feel free to take a picture of this screen as well. And ChatGPT or any AI model is so helpful. If you want to kind of have your AI help you come up with an eating plan and make sure these things are in it, it can do that. I'm so grateful for that. You can even ask it for some specific clean brands today. But fiber is the thing you're going to hear in a little bit that honestly, it's the king of all of these categories we're talking about tonight. Fiber is your king. And I always want to get ahead of myself here a little bit. Let's go to polyphenols. So polyphenols are just the colors that make our fruits, vegetables, and berries the colors that they are. It also, you can find polyphenols in dark chocolate, also in herbs and spices. So the largest gut study ever done showed those who had a variety of 30 plants in a week, they had way more diversity and less inflammation markers than those who only had a diversity of 10. So we've done challenges before too, where we've tracked our plant intake, and I can hit the 30 when we track it, but anytime those challenges end, I kind of slide back to my favorites and the things that I do most often. And I think most of us are that way. Healthy fats. So the goal is to get 2 to 4 servings per day. So this comes from things like your fatty fish, your salmon, your sardines, your anchovies, your avocados, your extra virgin olive oils, nuts, walnuts, almonds, right? And seeds. And then lastly, you want to aim for your fermented foods. Again, the largest study so far on fermented foods was done at Stanford University, and it showed those who had a variety of 6 servings of probiotic foods or fermented foods had the most diversity and least amount of inflammation. So fermented foods are things like yogurt. Now you want to make sure that you're reading the label because not all yogurts are created the same, and there's a lot of marketing hype and a lot of sugar in some of these brands. And so honestly, Greek yogurt, organic Greek yogurt is a great way to go. It's a really great source of protein. If you're avoiding dairy altogether, there are some really great plant-based yogurts that you can also get. But you want to make sure when you look at the label that it says like the probiotic names. So you'll like lactobacillus. You'll see those names on the label. Another great place is to get it in sauerkraut. We actually carry jars of sauerkraut. You can make sauerkraut pretty easily, but we do buy a brand we really like called Bubby's. And my daughter and I like to take a bite of sauerkraut every day. Just one bite can totally be game changing for the amount of microbes you have in your gut. Kimchi, kefir, tempeh, miso, and kombucha. Those are all good sources of fermented foods. But the reality is, and hopefully you guys now know that, but what tends to happen, and I see this a lot as a therapist, is we know what we should be doing, but the actual doing has a gap. And so the data shows that only 1 in 10 Americans meet the vegetable intake recommendations. Only 12% meet fruit intake guidelines. Around 95% of Americans are fiber deficient, that king nutrient that we should be getting on a daily basis. The majority of our country is deficient in. And fermented foods are rarely consumed regularly in our modern Western diet. So when you talk about gut health today, a lot of times you're going to hear these words, and I want to help define them for you guys today: prebiotics, probiotics, and postbiotics. I used to kind of think they were all the same thing, but varied, but they are not the same thing. So I'm here to kind of help you guys understand them like I was able to. So prebiotics are the plant fibers and the colors, the polyphenols that we mentioned. So those are 2 types of prebiotics: polyphenols, plant fibers. And they are the fuel, they are the food, they feed the bacteria. So probiotics are the bacteria. So probiotics eat the prebiotics. And when they do that, they produce postbiotics. And so postbiotics are beneficial metabolites called short chain fatty acids. And they're produced via the fermentation, and they provide health benefits. So the main postbiotics are called butyrate, propionate, and acetate. Butyrate is kind of the king in helping to heal that cell wall that we showed a little bit earlier. I have this picture of sourdough behind this slide because I think this is a great visual for you guys to understand. So when you have a mother in that jar and you feed that mother, which is fermented dough, right? So there's bacteria in that dough. When you feed her a 1/4 cup of flour and a 1/4 cup of warm water, or whatever ratio you might feed her, that flour and water are prebiotics for that mother, for that bacteria. And you mix it all together, and what happens is in a period of time, it's going to grow. And in that growth, we call it doubling and bubbling because, as you can see in these jars, there are bubbles, there are air pockets. But honestly, that's not just air. there are these short chain fatty acids. There are these postbiotics that are in that air that have beneficial effects. And so when you guys start taking in more fiber, I remember my grandma saying, I can't eat salad, like because it runs right through her. Well, my grandma probably needed an easier way. She needed more broke down. I mean, that was a clear sign that she had dysbiosis or imbalance in her gut. What my grandma needed was not raw. She needed something, a way to get that fiber that was a little lower, a little gentler on her system. So if you cook vegetables, then you're going to better be able to digest them and get those fibers in. So when we get that fiber in, then maybe you have farts and maybe you have burps. Like, again, I want to encourage you, gas is good. Now, if it is to the point where it's like painful and disruptive, now we're going to talk about going like lowering the amount of fiber that we're intaking. We're going to go a little bit slower with it over time so that you're not having the bothersome gas or bothersome bloating. You want to find that right mix and you want to keep going because it will go away over time. And I wanted to make sure you guys understood that. So when it comes to gut health, it is a highly competitive market today, right? I think we just heard the wellness industry like hit a couple trillion. What was it recently? A lot, right? It's a great place to be if you're a business, is in the wellness space. Well, of those gut health products, 88% of them are probiotics. Unfortunately, it shows that 2/3 of people have no noticeable benefit from taking their probiotic. And we're going to talk about why that is. Well, the first reason that people might say they don't really have a noticeable benefit of their probiotic is because probiotics are actually pretty fragile nutrients. And so a lot of them get stopped right here in the stomach. They can't survive the hydrochloric acid and they never make it to the lower colon, the large intestine, for it to do its job where it needs to get. That's problem number one. Problem number two is there are some probiotics that actually have an encapsulation that's designed to survive the hydrochloric acid. So that's good. But when it gets down into the large intestine, it doesn't have any prebiotics there. There's no polyphenols, there's no fibers. Like the environment hasn't been set up to feed that probiotic. And so it might sprout a little, but most probiotics end up dying off and then passing right through you. And so there needed to be a disruption in the market because we know that we need to be eating these things. Hopefully, you guys are going to start moving the needle. But with any habit, we know that it's about consistency. So not only are people not doing it, they're not doing it consistently. So even myself, knowing as much as I do, like I know what I need to do, and I am pretty good about getting it, but the consistency day to day can get disrupted. And so as an occupational therapist, what I call this is an adaptation. We needed an adaptation to help people to be consistent. And so I want to introduce you guys to the product line of Juice Plus. I have been partnered with this company for 23 years, actually this month. And I recommend products to my patients, all kinds of different products, but this is the main one that if I had to pick for somebody to invest their money, hard-earned dollars into that actually was going to give them the most bang for their investment, it's going to be this product line. And I was introduced to this product 23 years ago. And I honestly was only introduced to the fruits and veggies. That really was all that was available to me. This berry blend was in existence, but you had to be 50 years or older to take it at the time because it was understudy. So at 25 years old, I started taking these fruit and veggie capsules. I was on 8 prescription medications, mostly asthma and allergy related. I had an anxiety medication as well. And in a very short period of time, now I had a coworker who introduced me to this. She was a therapist. She was my mentor in the therapy world. And she was in her early 50s. And when she introduced it to me, I said, well, what is it? And she says, it's Jamie, it's simple. It's just fruits and vegetables. It's in a capsule. I've been on it for 2 years. And after a year, I got off all of my asthma and allergy meds. So I was a vitamin junkie because I knew there had to be a better way. And I was searching for something. But I could spend hours at those Whole Food stores just looking at all the supplementations. And now, right, you have advertisements coming before your eyes on a daily basis, or influencers trying to influence you on stuff. But I want to share like clinically what works with you guys. Again, what's going to be the best investment for your money. So back then, this had, I think, 7 clinical studies behind it. And what it showed is that these fruits and vegetable powders got into your bloodstream. And when they got into your bloodstream, they actually moved the needle and they did stuff. They helped to lower your inflammation, right? That's what we've been talking about all day. It helps to increase your cardiovascular wellness. And we'll touch on some of those other things in a second. But for me, I call myself an open skeptic. So when my coworker introduced me to this, I knew I wanted it. She was so sweet. She gave me a bottle of each of hers to get on it. And I ultimately ended up, sweet Brandy, who introduced me, she's a nurse by trade. And Brandy had started sharing this with her friends and her family. And she had shared it with my sister. And that's how I got connected to Brandy to be able to order it because my coworker didn't know where she got it. She just kept getting it in the mail. And so I knew it took my coworker a year to get off her medication. So I was already in it for the long haul. This is not a medication. This is just food. This is a food first approach. And I knew I wasn't eating, especially at 25, I wasn't eating 7 to 13 servings of fruits and veggies on a daily basis. And so this is the narrow product line. So we have fruit, veggies, we have berries. Here's the healthy fats that Dr. Will talks about as a workhorse, right? So this is an algae-based omega. Omegas are very important, and algae is the highest quality source of omega that you can get. And then we have the superfood powder. So these still beautiful fruit, veggie, berry bottles, they knew some people get tired of taking capsules and they get capsule fatigue. And my kids who've been on this their entire lives are some of those kids. And when Juice Plus came out with the superfood powder, my 17-year-old daughter said, Mom, I actually look forward to taking my Juice Plus now. So it was a mom win for me to have the superfood powder. And then this company came out a few years ago with Luminate. Luminate is, again, it's more prebiotic. So this is from the mushroom and the herb family. So this is going to be all of this good stuff that's going to feed the probiotics in our system. So we have probiotics inside of us already. And when you eat probiotic foods, right, it helps us to have even more. But if you're not getting a lot consistently, you might need a supplement for that. Or a nutritional support. So Luminate has a lot of cognitive benefits. This one, I like to drink hot, like herbal tea in the morning. It's part of my routine, but a lot of people love mixing these things together and drinking them iced. But Luminate really is the first of this product line that actually has a noticeable difference because you don't really feel different after you eat a salad, do you? Right? It takes time where you start to have benefits. A lot of times people see it in their blood work that these things are making a difference. This one, you feel it within 30 to 60 minutes, not in an artificial way, but like in a really focused, you're just mood lifts. You're just like ready to take on the day or ready to have a great night. So I love Luminate. I drink 1 to 2 a day. And here so far, Juice Plus is the most clinically researched whole food product in the entire world. We have more research than any pharmaceutical ever. And here are the things that it's showing. So not only is it bioavailable, which means it's getting in your bloodstream, but it's helping to support that immune function. So this shows that T cells go up, B cells go down, natural killer cells go up. Not that you have to know what that means, but that immune system we talked about having to be on demand is now less in demand. It's better able to do its job. Shows decreased biomarkers of inflammation, right? That's huge. We've talked all night about inflammation. We know this product line decreases inflammation. It protects your DNA, cognitive processes, healthy skin. You guys can read all of these. Increases the omega-3 index, which there's a direct link between your omega-3 index and cardiovascular wellness. For me, the biggest things that I noticed when I started this product were the immune function and then the lung function. So right within 6 months, I was able to get off all of my asthma and allergy medications. And I had been on an inhaler since I was 5 years old. I love playing sports. I relied on my inhaler every practice and every game of my entire collegiate career playing soccer. And when I first started, that was probably the biggest thing where I knew this wasn't just another supplement that I had tried. Like this is where I went to take a breath while running. I had forgot my inhaler and I was able to run the entire time and never needed my inhaler. So this was a game changer. I wanted to know why. So super biome, this is what is probably the most exciting thing that I am sharing right now about our product line. because I feel like this is maybe an amazing start. If I had to do it all over again and I had to pick one place, for me, what I had walked through as an infant, I needed this. Now, I had all of those beautiful colors of polyphenols from Juice Plus, and it absolutely made a huge difference. I just told you what a difference it made for me. Um, but that partnered with Superbiome, this is a probiotic and a prebiotic. It's an innovative two-step system, and it's so far apart from everything else that's out on the market. So first, step one is the probiotic. It's a tiny capsule and it is so easy to take every day. And so these, if you guys are into science and want to check this out like I am, feel free to take a picture of this screen and ask your AI, like, what are the clinical benefits of these strains of probiotics? So these are well studied and they have some phenomenal benefits. So these 9 strains make up 20 billion colony forming units. And they pair with these prebiotics, right? So not all fiber feeds all probiotics, but these fibers that I'm showing you right now feed the probiotics I just showed you. And so these are a blend of prebiotic fibers that I generally am not eating on a daily basis. Like I'm not eating, I do love artichokes, but I'm not eating artichokes every day. I'm not eating chicory root. I'm not getting acacia fibers, right? XOS. And what happens is that these two together mix and our blends produce this diversity of postbiotics because we are driving not only the innate microbiome growth, but you're also growing the exogenous one, meaning the one you're introducing. And so postbiotics help with that barrier function, that gut integrity. It also helps the mucosal system. The mucus sits right on top of the cell wall. It decreases inflammation and it also has other associations with cognitive, mood, and appetite control. In fact, we talked about GLP-1s. Propionate, which is one of the postbiotics, is associated with glucose regulation and weight management. So that helps to signal your natural GLP-1s inside of you. So it is a great support, whether you have considered doing a GLP-1 and you want to do this first, or you're going to do this in conjunction, because this is a great way to train your body as somebody gets off those meds, because you don't want to be on those meds forever. So this is really great to move into or to do alongside, to build your own natural ability to do that. So this product became really alive for me this past summer. I've loved speaking about gut health for several years, and they asked me to help introduce this product to the company. And I was honored. And what happened at the same time as me being asked was my 18-year-old was graduating almost a year ago from high school and should have been living the best summer of his life. But unfortunately, I take my kids once a year to a dermatologist just for just a general well visit, have their skin checked. And Owen got prescribed an antibiotic for a little bit of back acne that he had. And unfortunately, Owen has my genetics, and his entire microbiome got wiped out. And within a week of that antibiotic, he had bled in his stools. And we spent the next 3 months going to 4 different doctors. We had a functional med doc, we had a Chinese med doc, that's that middle picture, getting acupuncture and some herbal supplements from her as well. We had a traditional medicine doc who ended up doing the colonoscopy. And lastly, we ended up with a GI specialist. So Owen lost 30 pounds. He was having urgency and frequency. He spent, 30 to 40 minutes on the toilet and had to cut himself off. He pulled away from lifting weights. He pulled away from hanging with his friends his last summer before he went off to school. And was thinking about sending that boy like that to college for the first time, to a dorm room where he shared one bathroom with 3 other boys, actually 4 other boys, really was a stress, not only to him, but to me. And 3 days before we sent him to college, Owen got diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And Juice Plus kind of knew what my son was walking through. And so they were so kind, they sent him the box of the two-step system before it was even out to the public. And I had him on a different pre and probiotic that's pretty popular today. It's called Seed, SEED. You may have seen it across your social media. It's the one I had used also when recovering from my hip surgery, just kind of to check a box to know that I needed to be doing that, probiotic and prebiotic, especially after having surgery and taking pain meds and taking antibiotics myself. Um, and though it really didn't ever do, I was one of those people who said two-thirds like really didn't notice a difference in taking it, just kind of was checking a box. And Owen was the same way. Like he was taking it just to check a box. We knew we needed to try to help to heal his gut, but it didn't really do anything. It didn't hurt him by any means. But the difference, he did get put on a biologic medication. And they said it takes about 8 weeks to have significant improvement from the biologic. Owen was about week 3, week 4 when he got super biome. And in 5 days, he went from completely number 8, completely loose bowels to completely normal stools. And here we are, like this is a picture of him. Probably this was probably in December. So he is back to his normal weight. Actually, he's gained weight. His goal is to gain weight. He's probably the strongest he's ever been. And we did a follow-up colonoscopy 3 months after the first, so in December, and it came back that they said, and they even took the biopsy and they said, Owen, if we didn't know you had Crohn's, we'd never been able to tell. So his gut has completely healed, and we are forever grateful for that. Again, I think it's that combination of the superbiome is in addition to his biologic. Owen has always been a really clean kid eating. He doesn't, doesn't eat a lot of the processed foods or anything like that. So my story. So I had hip surgery 2 Decembers ago. And so as Owen was going through all of what he was going through, I was still recovering from hip surgery. This is me kind of at the same time in May, in the middle. I was inflamed. I didn't really know how inflamed I was then, but looking back now, I can see that I just was carrying more inflammation. I obviously couldn't move as much as I'm used to having moved as a CrossFitter. I was still eating really clean and prioritizing protein. I definitely wasn't getting enough fiber on a daily basis. And what happened for me is a couple things. First is when I started Superbiome, when I was going through the stress of Owen over the summer, I unfortunately got exposed to poultry that wasn't clean, and I ended up having to EpiPen myself. And after I EpiPen myself, I ended up getting like swollen gums, and then this lining of my cheek was swelling and then peeling off. It was really weird. And then I went to a gym and I got a weird rash on my thigh. Long story short, 2 weeks after starting the Superbiome, all of those skin things cleared up. And I don't know if you've ever felt like this, but I'm somebody who there's been seasons where I'm really dialed in, like I'm counting my macros, I'm getting in the workouts, I'm tracking my sleep and my hydration. Sometimes the results physically on my body, I feel like it just wasn't showing. All that effort wasn't showing up physically like I thought it should. Well, this is about a month after Superbiome. I walked by the mirror in my bathroom one day and my abs actually kind of caught my eye. And again, this isn't to brag, but it is to say, like, I had a lot of bloat that I didn't realize that I had. And I'm 48 years old. I'm in the middle of perimenopause, menopause. I don't know where I'm at, quite honestly. But typically, you carry weight in your abdomen in this season of life. Superbiome has helped the habits that I have, like it's helped to decrease that inflammation, decrease that bloat. It's helped me to better digest the food that I am taking, like my protein, and it's allowing my body to actually put it where it's supposed to, like in building muscle. And I've had more muscle in my frame since taking Superbiome than I ever had before. But again, it's in conjunction with all the habits that I already do. So I just want to thank you guys. I love sharing my story. I hope it inspires you, no matter if what you're walking through is something minor, like a skin thing, to something major. I want to give you hope that there are solutions. So I encourage you to get back with the person who invited you to this tonight, or if you're watching the recording. And Brandy, thanks for hosting. I'm going to turn it back to you.